Alright, so today we're doing Lazio rebuild in the Italian Serie A. Alright, so kicking things off, we are starting with having a look at our finances and our transfer budget. We're going to be starting with a healthy bank balance of 41.9 million. Most of that thanks to the sale of Milinkovic-Savic. And our transfer budget is going to be set at around 16 million or so if we don't increase it slightly, with a wage budget of a maximum of up to 1.7 or rounded up to 1.8 million per week. Now things are going to get interesting because I may or may not have mentioned this, but I am planning to sell most of the players, and we'll be bringing in new faces and letting them play out the season. So without further ado, let us move on to the actual rebuild. So the first order of business was making some player transactions, namely just selling a few players. And the first one to go was Danilo Cataldi for 8.75 million to AC Milan. He was followed by Andre Anderson, who left us for Genoa for 2.1 million. Probably could have gotten a little bit more for him, but 2.1 is reasonable enough. Luis Alberto, 25.5 million to Paris Saint-Germain. Again, we could have gotten a little more for him, but I kind of took the first offer that came at me. Napolitano and Bedini were youth prospects whom left us for small amounts to smaller clubs, not a big deal there. And finally, Mattia Zaccagni left for Real Madrid for 32.5 million with potential for it to rise to 36.5 million. So that's with the prearranged transfers before we took over, 118 million in outgoing transfers. And finally, the best part of the rebuild, the three players that we brought in. So we have Wilfried Benonto joining us from Leeds United for about 36 million. Now I have heard that he usually has a release clause or relegation release clause attached to his contract with Leeds, but that wasn't the case in this save. Regardless, we brought him in for 23.5 up front with a potential for that to rise up to 38.5 million. Next up, to replace Mattia Zaccagni, who left us for Real Madrid, we brought in Thiago Gouveia from Benfica, I think he was at Benfica. Yeah, Benfica, but he was on loan at Estoril Praia over the last season, and he joined us for 8 million. And finally, Nordi Mukiele from Paris Saint-Germain for $11 million. And those will be the three signings for the season. We are going to plug them into the lineup and see how they do, and now we'll move on to the results. Now for the tactics, we are going to go with my usual GYR 433 Thanos created for FM24. And all our new signings are in. They're all plugged into the lineup, including the new signings that were pre-arranged before, like Guendouzi coming in on loan, Kamada joining us. Romagnoli had to be a staple in the lineup. He's the only OG member in the squad right now. But Isaksen will also be getting a fair amount of starts, if not all of them. Thiago Gouveia on the left-hand side as a left winger, and of course Wilfried Nonto up front, and we gave him the number 9 just out of necessity and obligation. But yeah, those are the tactics, and now we will move on. Our first 3 matches of the new Serie A season are in the books, and we've started off with 3 straight wins, with a 5-2 win against Torino, 1-0 win against reigning champions Napoli, and a 3-0 win against Inter at home. Now hopefully this can carry on and we can see how it goes, and I will go ahead and simulate the rest of the season and see where we end up. And how did we do at the end of the first season? Well, let's find out. So, in the Serie A, we finished the season in third place with 23 wins from 38 matches played and 76 points. 2 wins behind Juventus. In the Champions League, we were knocked out in the round of 16 by Real Madrid. So if we have a look at that, we lost 4-7 on aggregate against Real Madrid. After a 2-2 draw at Stadio Olimpico, we lost 5-2 away from home at the Bernabeu. So we'll have to atone for that in this season. In Coppa Italia, we won against AC Milan in the final 2-0. And we dispatched Napoli in the semis, Roma in the quarterfinals, and we were winners of Coppa Italia there. In the Super Cup, well, it doesn't look like we did that well. Third place finish, that's okay. It could have ended better. We could have won that as well, adding more silverware to our trophy cabinet, but it wasn't meant to be this year. So yeah, that's the basic season review there. And we are once again in a Champions League spot for next season. And that concludes season number 1. Now, the end of season stats, we've had some really good performances overall. Daichi Kamada was our top scorer, 22 goals from him in 45 appearances. Wilfred Nonto got himself 21 goals across all competitions in 51 appearances, and Guendouzi came in third place with 11 goals and in 46 appearances. Ciro Immobile was mainly appearing off the bench, and in one start and 42 appearances from the bench, he managed to find the back of the net 10 times, which was decent. And Thiago Gouveia, our new signing, also got himself 9 goals in 48 matches started. Alright, so season number 2 sees us making a few more additions to the team and a few more subtractions as well. So Manuel Lazzari left us for 25 million to Atletico Madrid. Adam Marusic went to Al Qadish in Saudi Arabia for 4.1 million. Felipe Anderson went to Inter for 30 million. And those were the 3 big changes, or 3 big sales, before we get on to the signings. Now, Guendouzi joined us on free from Marseille for 14 million, which was a pre-arranged transfer. Rafa Marin came in from Real Madrid for 10.5 million, so another defender to use in our lineup. Archie Brown joined us from Ghent for 13 million, and Gennaro Tutino from Parma as a backup left winger for 1.9 million. Now, I've also decided to switch up the formation, and we are going to go with a 4-2-4 this season. So I will make the adjustments to the lineup and simulate the first few matches, and we'll see you back when that's done. All right, so we are starting off the second season of our rebuild here with a win at home 4-0 against Juventus. 2-2 draw against Salernitana away from home. 1-0 win against Inter at home, and a 4-0 win away from home against Monza. And here we are at the end of Season 2 of our Lazio rebuild, and it did not going according to plan. Or at least it didn't go as well as the previous season where we ended in 3rd place. But we finished the season in 6th. And most of that, well, how do I put this? It's mostly thanks to a slump right here in the last couple of months of the season, where we've dropped more points than we should have. But 6th place finish, it's still a Europa League place, we're still in Europe. And hopefully we can pick ourselves up from that and do better in the season after. Season number 3. So it is what it is. It's not what I expected, far from it. But we are where we are. And now for the end of season stats. Ciro Immobile tops the goal scoring charts for us with 25 goals, and that's thanks to us changing the formation to a 4-2-4 system, where he's playing up front as a pressing forward with Wilfred Gnonto. Speaking of Gnonto, he picked himself up 22 goals. Kamada continuing his strong run for us with netting 16. Tari Castellanos, mostly coming in off the bench, scored 11. Archie Brown, our new left-back signing, whom we retrained as a right-back, also picked up 11 goals. Gustav Isaksen, who started most of the season, but also had 9 appearances off the bench, scored 10. And those were our top 6 scorers. The rest of them you can see on screen here. In terms of the average rating, our best players, well, Gustafsson topped that chart. Immobile came in 2nd, Brown 3rd, Kamada 4th, Pedro came in 5th with 26 appearances off the bench and 14 starts. And Matteo Cancellieri, whom we actually brought in the latter half of the season from our youth setup, playing on the right wing, got himself a good average rating of 7.01, despite not scoring any goals, but he provided 6 assists. Start of Season 3 sees us making a number of new additions to the team, and most of them are to deal with deficiencies within the squad. Like, we were really weak on the right back side of things, and we had to bring in a couple of right backs to cover for that. So Luca Pellegrini, joined us from Juventus, pre-arranged transfer from the start of the save. Same with Nicola Ravella. We brought in Dominic Calvert-Lewin to play alongside Wilfred Gnonto up front on a free transfer from Everton, and he is most likely going to be playing as a poacher. Cesar Huerta joined us from Pumas in Mexico, and despite him being a winger, we are going to retrain him to play in the middle as a mezzala, because I know he can do a really good job there. Oscar Gil, Sael Kumbedi, and Andoni Grossabel are all right backs. So we're bringing them in to help with the deficiencies that I mentioned earlier. And last but not least, Matias Oliveira, joining us from Napoli for 14 million. To cover as a backup on the left back position. And in terms of sales, we've lost Hisai on a free transfer. Patrick left for Saudi Arabia for 3.5 million. Fares to Palermo for 1.4. Gila to Cremonese for 1.3 overall. Toma Basic went to Troyes in France for 1 million. Luis Maximiliano also went to Saudi Arabia for 4.5 million. Federico Magro and Valerio Crespi, whom were youth prospects that didn't look like they were going to pan out, left on small deals to smaller clubs. Now, we didn't make any tactical changes to the lineup for Season 3, so everything's remaining as it was last season. And our preseason didn't go as well as we expected, having lost to Atalanta and LAFC by 1 goal difference. And then the start of the season also did not mirror the start of Season 2, so we dropped the first 2 matches. Then we beat Napoli 3-2 away from home, and Verona 3-0 at home. And that brings us to end of the 3rd season, and we end the season once again in 6th place, just barely escaping the Europa Conference League spot by 1 point. That honor will go to Atalanta for season number 4. And again, things did not go the way I had expected them to. I mean, we've had some really good results, like a 5-2 win against AC Milan here in middle of the season, away from home. And that's about it for the highlights. Well, and a 5-2 win against Monza, I guess. And a 4-1 against Lecce towards the latter half of the season, right at the end. But overall, it could have gone better. And for the 2nd season in a row, we end the season in 6th place. So, yeah. I know I've said it could have gone better a couple of times already, but here it is for the 3rd time and the 4th time. It could have gone better. Well, we will move on to our end of season recap for the stats. And at the end of the season, we have Wilfred Gnonto as our top goal scorer with 30, contributing 5 assists as well with a 7.1 average match rating. Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored 22 with 10 assists to add on to it with a 7.31 average match rating, which is our highest average match rating for the season. So he was a really good signing on a free, which I knew he would be in the first place. But moving on, Cesar Huerta, who is fully retrained as a Mazzala now, netted 13, and Ciro Immobile netted 10. Now, for our other top performers, after Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we had Matteo Cancellieri, our youth product, coming in 2nd place on average match rating side of things, and Wilfred Gnonto in 3rd place. Alright, so the start of Season 4 sees us losing Ciro Immobile on a free transfer, and he's going to Saudi Arabia. Now, I did try to sell him on, but no one was interested on multiple occasions. Daichi Kamada is leaving us for Fiorentina for 13.25 million overall. Well, it could rise up to that amount. And Christos Mandas is going on loan. That's inconsequential at this point. Gustav Isaksen is also moving on to Al Rayed for 2.5 million, and Ivan Provedel is also going to Saudi Arabia for 24 million. Now, the transfers we brought in, and one thing I neglected to mention earlier is that we did bring in a replacement for Provedel, which I'll show off in a little bit. But the players coming in are Filippo Mane from Borussia Dortmund, a good centre-back that could serve a purpose for us, especially since we are going to be changing formation for this season. Souso Embalo coming in from Marco 09 for 140k. He's a youth signing. Same with Daniel Costa, same with Jonas Squarcionil. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So these are all signings for a youth team here. And Nicola Febraro as well. So they're all players who are 17 years of age or younger that are coming in. So that is it for transfers for season number 4. And we'll move on to the preseason results. So, first things first. We've got a big change in terms of how we're going to line up this season. And we are going with a 5-2-3. 3 at the back, 2 wing backs, a box-to-box midfielder in Guendouzi playing alongside Huerta Zamazala, and we've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin moving onto the left wing with Thiago Gouveia switching sides over to the right, and Wilfred Nanto up front. Now, here's a bit of a shock. The preseason went really well, apart from the 5-2 loss to Atalanta. We smashed Cesena 5-0, drew against Man City 3-3, and beat Manchester United 2-1. To start the season, we beat Spezia 1-0, drew against Udinese, and then absolutely destroyed Empoli 8-1 at home. And the end of the 4th season sees us climb back up to 3rd place behind Milan and Napoli. Still unable to crack the top 2 positions or win the league as of yet, but we have one more season left to do so. Now, in terms of the results, we started off the season very strong, basically going undefeated in Serie A until January, and our loss to Torino at home by a score of 2-1. We had a decent showing in Europa League as well, with some very big wins like 6-3 smashing of Futbolski Klub Partizan, which I'm very happy about, at home, and then beating Hoffenheim away from home 5-2, Copenhagen away from home 1-0, and then we dropped a stinker away at AZ Alkmaar, losing by a final scoreline of 5-2. And the rest of the season, as strong as we started, the mid-season slump, or latter half of the season slump, if you will, here really hit us, since we dropped some of the games that we really should have been winning. So that's a lot of points lost right there. But we had once again a strong finish to the latter half of the season, going undefeated in 7 matches to secure a 3rd place finish in Serie A. For the competitions, which I did not go over in my previous season's recap since season 1. As you see, Serie A, we finished 3rd. Europa League, we were knocked out in the knockout playoff round by Sevilla. And for Coppa Italia, we were knocked out in semi-final by Fiorentina. Now for the end of season recap for Lazio. So we had Wilfried Gnonto end with 42 goals in 52 appearances. Absolutely unbelievable. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored 21. Guendouzi scored 12. Huerta scored 10. And in terms of the average ratings, Calvert-Lewin tops the chart yet again, 2nd season running. Wilfried Gnonto had 7.26 coming in right behind Calvert-Lewin with 7.31. Guendouzi had an average rating of 7.23. Govea, Huerta, Mane, and Perry were our top players for season number 4. Alright, so we are starting off the final leg of our journey in season number 5. And of course, as usual, I will recap the signings that we made for the final season, which were all made on June the 1st, pardon me. So all of them are practically the signings for our youth squad, with one exception, and that is Christian Fruchtel joining us to be the backup to the goalkeeper that I neglected to mention earlier, the replacement for Ivan Provedel, who turns out to be none other than Lucas Perry. Now, Perry did have a horrendous start to his Lazio career. After acquiring him in January 2026, we started him right away for 6 matches and he let in 17 goals, which was not ideal. But following that showing, he was benched for the rest of the 2025-26 season, and he started all of our matches in 2026-27 after Provedel was sold to Saudi Arabia for 24 million, and he did well. So he will be our starter for the coming season. In terms of the formation for the final season, we are not changing a single thing. So basically we're gonna stay with our 5-2-3, and this is our current lineup right now. However, some players could slide in and out depending on how the season goes. So let us get the final leg of the journey started. And we've had a really good start to the season. So following our pre-season, which went extremely well, including wins against Atalanta, smashing Bologna and beating Real Madrid. Sadly, we lost to both of the Manchester sides, losing to City 3-1 and Manchester United 2-1. But our preseason showing was largely a positive. And to kick off the regular season, we beat Inter in the opening match 2-0, Cremonese 2-1, and Torino 4-0. Alright, so here we are at the end of our journey, at the end of season 5. And we are ending the season 4 points behind Milan in 3rd place in the Serie A. Kind of on a somber note. I would have wanted to win the title, but maybe that's something one of you guys can accomplish. And of course, I will make the save available on my Patreon, and you can have a crack at it starting all the way from season 1 or at any point in between season 1 and season 5, because each season is saved separately. But it is what it is at the moment. We are the second best team in Serie A according to goal difference. 43 goal differential compared to Milan's 44. And that is where I'll leave it now. So we'll have a look at season 5 stats next, and we'll end the series on that note. So despite us not changing the tactic at all, where Wilfred Gnonto had 42 goals the previous season across all competitions, he only managed to score 20 this time around. Calvert-Lewin had 21, and Huerta was our second best player in terms of average match rating. Govea did well as well, scoring 13 goals across 48 matches that he appeared in. Cancellieri came off the bench 39 times and scored 6. And Guendouzi also scored 9 in 47 starts. So that's it for the end of season stats recap. And we'll take a look at the competitions before we end the video. Right, so here we are for the final season recap. And as you already know, and I mentioned earlier, we ended the Serie A season in 3rd place, 4 points behind AC Milan. The good news there is that we do get a Champions League spot again for next season, which you guys can take on if you choose to continue this rebuild. In the Champions League, we got knocked out by, well, in the league phase, and we've had a good start. We've really had a good start there. I mean, we lost at Camp Nou in our opening match 1-0, but then we smashed Sturm Graz 7-0 at home, then lost to Monaco 2-0 away from home and 3-2 to Man United at home. And we beat Stade Rennes, we beat Young Boys, but our last 2 matches were the ones to seal our fate there. And if we just managed to get a draw against Chelsea, we would have actually qualified for the knockout round. But since that did not happen, Copenhagen ended up going on to the knockout round phase ahead of us, despite us having the better goal difference. But of course we had 1 point less than them. So that ended our Champions League run. In the Coppa Italia, we were knocked out by Verona in the 3rd round. Not a good showing there. And in the Super Cup, we lost to Milan in the final 2-0. So that pretty much sums it up. End of season 5 and the end of the rebuild is here. So like I mentioned earlier, if you guys want to continue it on, I will make the file available on my Patreon, and it's there for you to dig into. So once again, if you enjoyed this rebuild and if you would like to see more rebuilds in the future, please make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and check out my Patreon, and we will see you back for the next one.